Let's get into our first main topic today. And our first main topic today is submitted to us by Geeky Gator, who writes, "Hey, John and gang. It was a common complaint amongst Star Wars fans that Rise of Skywalker never explained how Palpatine was alive and with the resources that he had. A visual dictionary book recently explained it, and it sounds like a very interesting story. Do you think Lucasfilm will continue making these big questions in movies to only explain them later on in other material?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that around, Geeky Gator. And yes, one of the big problems of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, and full disclosure, I know a bunch of people really like that film, and that's awesome. I am unfortunately not one of them, and that's okay. But one of the big problems of that movie was the fact that they do this big thing where the Emperor returns. And I've always been of the type of the person, Rob, that says you don't have to explain-o-vision everything, right? You don't need to explain everything. You can leave some things unexplained that aren't pertinent to the story and the narrative that's going on as we speak. As a matter of fact, when the whole stuff about Snoke was going on, people saying, you need to explain Snoke. I was of the opinion, no, you don't. We don't need to know who Snoke is. We simply don't. It's not important to the story. We need to know that Snoke is big. We need to know that Snoke is bad. We need to know that Snoke is powerful. And we need to know that he's the guy in charge. And that's all we need to know. Just like in the original trilogy, we didn't need to know anything about where the Emperor came from, how he took over the Galactic Senate and all that. We didn't need to know. It wasn't important. But Rob, when you have a television show and you have a character named Three-Armed Eddie, oh, look, here comes Three-Armed Eddie. And Three-Armed Eddie is a guy with one left arm and two right arms. Hi, guys, I'm Three-Armed Eddie. And Three-Armed Eddie is on your show for 2 years. And all of a sudden, during the season premiere of season 3, he shows up and he's just got two arms. And they never address it. It's like, wait a minute, time out. This is important. We need to understand this. When your story tells the story of the Emperor dying and the defeat of the Emperor, it's great that you're going to bring him back, but that's a part of the narrative now. You've got to tell us, how on earth is he back? And to quote my friend Christian Harloff, all Star Wars told us was, because. That's it. That's all they told us was because. And they just left it at that. All right, so what Geeky Gator is referring to is that a Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker visual dictionary has now come out, and it gives some answers as to where the Emperor was this whole time. How did he come back and all that sort of stuff. And this is coming to us from Screen Rant as they write a report on it. It says, according to the tie-in book, that's the visual dictionary, Darth Sidious, that's Palpatine, was brought to Exegol by his hooded cohorts called the Sith Eternals, who we've never heard of. Right. Called the Sith Eternals. These mysterious beings weren't mentioned in the movie, no kidding, although they were explicitly featured during the climactic battle between Rey and her grandfather. Apparently, they are devoted Sith followers who were Palpatine loyalists. After Darth Sidious's defeat in Return of the Jedi, they brought him to Exegol, and using technology and occult, they were able to revive him. That's all they say in the visual dictionary. Rob, let me address two major problems here. Let me address two major problems here.
I can think of two.
I can probably think of many, but let me focus on two. Problem number one. I remember I said this back, when Animatrix was coming out regarding, surrounding the Matrix films. If your movie needs extra movie material to make your movie make sense, then you did a damn poor job making your movie. If I need something outside of the movie to understand what's going on in your movie, then you did a bad job making your movie. All right? It's great that you can give deeper information on things that weren't pertinent to narrative in these visual dictionaries. And by the way, I love these visual dictionaries. I always have. And you can go into deeper stuff that wasn't pertinent to the narrative to give us, flesh it out. That's great. But when you're giving major plot points and you're not giving them in the movie and you're giving them in these visual dictionaries, that is poor form. That is bad form. And I'll come right out and say bad filmmaking. And I say that as a big fan of J.J. Abrams, for the most part. I'm a fan of J.J. Abrams. I love what he did with The Force Awakens. I enjoy a lot of his stuff. but that is poor filmmaking. That is something that needed to be addressed in the film. But let's go on to problem number 2, Rob. Problem number 2 is saying, number 1, after his defeat, they brought him to exile. Wait a minute. His body was cast down a shaft in a Death Star that blew up in outer space. What do you mean they recovered him? Okay, they recovered him, and then how did they bring him back? All they say is they use technology and occult. That's it. That's all you're giving us. So even, number 1, it's stupid. It's absolutely stupid to have a primary narrative point having to be revealed in extra movie sources. Number 2, if you're going to give some kind of answer, give a damn answer. If you're going to try to give an answer there, then at least give a damn answer. And they gave no answer there. So to me, Rob, this doesn't calm my frustration. All right. It just intensifies my frustration even more with how dumb that whole situation was. Anyway, Rob, you see this whole thing. What do you think about them putting information like that in a book like that? And do you think it's maybe you feel like it's a satisfactory answer? How do you feel about it?
Dude, it's hogwash.
Hogwash.
Let me just tell you, if you're a child that was born, say, 5 years ago, and you first discover Star Wars and you decide to watch the movies in order, you go from Return of the Jedi, where they've defeated the Emperor, they've liberated the galaxy, and then you get to The Force Awakens, where suddenly, the First Order's taken over. Wait a minute, what about our victory in the last movie? J.J. Abrams has no interest in serving a real narrative in terms of allowing people to understand who are astute. We're all astute viewers of storytelling. How do you go from plot point A to plot point in his movies? You go from plot point A to plot point S, and he just figures you'll fill in all the things that happen in between. And he did the same thing with the Rise of the First Order and where the galaxy was in Force Awakens. He did the same thing with the Emperor. The Emperor's defeat was pretty resounding at the end of Jedi. It's not just that he was thrown down a shaft. There was an explosion when he got to the bottom of whatever energy was down there. I mean, he blew up, and then he blew up twice. When the Death Star didn't crack apart like an egg. It was atomized in that explosion. As we see the Millennium Falcon flying away, but bam, it's not like we saw it was gone. It was gone, and presumably everything in it. Of course, in Rise of Skywalker, we find out that no, not only do giant chunks exist, but his throne room is relatively intact. Maybe a broken window, but basically it's that thing that's on a little tiny spire, this tube, that's on the surface of the Death Star somehow survived that kind of an explosion. Well, I mean, what the hell, man? Give me something. Give me one. And not only did he survive, he's got a planet full of these acolytes that are in a stadium waiting for like a heavy metal show. Does he sing when people aren't there? Where did all these Star Destroyers come from? Who cares, right? Well, I care. You never ask yourself these questions in the original Star Wars. You don't.
Yeah, I just find the whole notion, though, of saving and not revealing pertinent, important information to the main pipeline of your narrative and not giving that in the movie and saving it for some book and then getting into the book and not even really giving an answer.
Like, where were these Sith acolytes, John, when they recovered his body, apparently? Were they just hanging out on the forest moon of Endor waiting for this to happen? Did they hear about the destruction of the Death Star 2 through news channels and they went and flew out there to see, hey, maybe we can find his body somewhere? Like, where were these dudes?
By the way, his body was pretty well intact. His body fared up pretty well. I got to give him kudos. His body fared up pretty well. So I don't know, guys. Question is, how do you feel about it? Like, listen, for all I know, maybe you guys feel like maybe some of you guys are just really happy they at least gave some kind of answer in some kind of form. And maybe there's some validity to that. Maybe you're like me and you're just totally frustrated. It makes you even more frustrated. I don't know, guys. How do you feel?
I was just going to say that they got to show their work. When you were learning math when you were a kid in school, whether it was algebra and something, you couldn't just put the answer down. You had to show your work. You didn't get an A on your test unless you showed how you got the answer to a math problem. Well, that's what good narrative does. It shows its work. This did not.
Well, and how do you guys feel about that? Jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right.